Khamenei, I mean, look, the man sacrificed himself for the state. Can you imagine anybody? I'm not just going to rag on Trump or his family or the Obamas or the Clintons or anybody taking a finger cut for his country, let alone putting his life out there and saying, okay, I'll die like everyone else because this is a statement for, this is for my country. They don't serve in the military. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything.
As soon as Saddam invaded Iran, he left. He was a senior figure in the political. He left Tehran. He went and fought in the war. And I mean, there's footage of him as a military because he became a military leader in the irregular forces, in the volunteer forces. And later on, he became president. After he was assassinated, he was elected president. And during the final months of the war, when the Americans came in and joined Saddam against Iran and started bombing, and yesterday was the anniversary of the downing of the Iran Air.
I remember that very well.
Airplane that was flying to Dubai.
Yeah,
290 people were killed. It was yesterday.
And the U.S. media, by the way, I remember this because I was just starting to pay attention. They were talking about how, look, they're dumping bodies into the water. They're dumping corpses in there from the morgues. We really didn't shoot anything down. It's all fake. It's all set up. They were on full press course.
So they murdered 290 people, and they tried to pretend that the plane was moving towards the USS Vincent, and that it was making threats and all sorts of lies. It was just an ordinary aircraft going from, I think, Bandar Abbas to Dubai, and they shot it down with 2 missiles. And so back then, when the Americans joined the war with Saddam against Iran directly, he left. He was a president. He left Tehran and went back to the war. And he fought, and he was on the front lines, going from one front to another, which was very dangerous because he was a top target, obviously. His son, who is now the leader, was a volunteer in the war. He fought as a volunteer, just like I did. His older brother, he's the second son of the martyr Ayatollah Khamenei. His older brother, he also fought in the war. In fact, by chance, his older brother and I were trained in the same unit. And we didn't know that he was the son of the president at the time, who later became leader. His name, he was called Hosseini. And then after 2 or 3 weeks into training, there was a rumor spreading among us that that Mr. Hosseini, they say he's the son of the president, and that his real name is. And then by the end of our training, it became obvious. We all knew who he was. So, but the point is that his own children were in the front lines. Yeah. He was in the front lines. So this person who with his extraordinary personality, was in jail 6 times before the revolution, if I'm not mistaken, and he was taken to the most notorious prison in central Tehran, like Satade, I forget the name of the prison. And then this is his trajectory. No wonder millions of people are gathering to take part in his funeral. And so, as you rightly pointed out, when the war was about to begin, he refused to leave his office and his home. He said, I'm going to carry out business as usual. And so did his family members. That's why his daughter, his son-in-law, not his son-in-law to his other daughter, his son-in-law, a daughter, and his granddaughter, they were murdered by the Americans, and of course the West, and simultaneously the Americans and the Israelis murdered the 168 little girls, and that's what the Epstein class does in Minab. And we saw Western leaders saying, like the Australian Prime Minister said, we will not mourn for these people. So aggression and murder and slaughter is fine when the Israelis and the Americans do. But people now see the reality. People's eyes have been opened. And so when millions of highly educated people go to the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei and are steadfast on the battlefield against the aggression of the West, people outside of the country see that, and they say, well, if these highly educated people love this man so much, then possibly all that propaganda is nonsense. I mean, after all, the propaganda, anti-Iranian propaganda, the anti-Russian propaganda, it's all produced by the Epstein class.
Oh, of course.
And the same people who carry out genocide in Gaza, the same people who carried out genocide in southern Lebanon. So people say, well, if Iran is so evil, why are all these people on the streets? And why is it that this evil country is standing up against genocide in Gaza, and the good guys in the West, the civilized, Europeans with their expensive suits and their, expensive perfume and their, expensive shoes and their expensive cars, why are they supporting genocide?
Absolutely. Seyed, I want to thank you very much for coming on. And I mean, this is extremely important. The West blankets out any news. There are minimal reports, and people need to know because the stereotypes that the West creates, they're powerful. I mean, let's be honest about it. They're powerful. They permeate the brain. And they go very long after the conflict's over, and they're still there, and then they exploit it later on down the road again. So these stereotypes, yeah. So these stereotypes have to be crushed, and the truth has to be out.
I mean, just one final point. Right now, the Washington Post and the New York Times are now saying that the Americans told the Iranians that the Israelis wanted.
Oh yeah. I saw that.
I was on that flight.
Yeah.
I was with the delegation. The Americans did not say anything to the Iranians. They did not send any messages to the Iranians. They're lying.
Of course.
The Iranians themselves, when they saw they have their own intelligence, means to gather intelligence. But the Washington Post put out an opinion piece while we're on our way to Islamabad, saying that this is the Washington Post, the CIA outlet. They were saying that they should assassinate the negotiators.
Yep, I remember that. Absolutely.
And that's why we changed our plane on the way back and flew to Mashhad, the place where Ayatollah Khamenei is going to ultimately be buried. I spoke about it earlier on. Mm-hmm. We went to the city of Mashhad, a very holy city, which is close to Afghanistan and Turkmenistan. Why? Because it was the Israeli reach. I mean, the Israelis, by the way, they don't have reach inside Iran. It is only with American jets to refuel their jets that they can attack Iran.
Absolutely.
But they need more to get to Mashhad. They need lots of refueling. So we flew to Mashhad, landed there, and then we came back to Tehran by train, by car, and that's why I came by train.
And I remember that day because you wrote to me, we're heading back. Pray for us. I don't know if we'll make it. I did. I hope that helped. It's up to the Lord to decide whether it did or not.
I'm sure it does. I mean, to be very blunt, none of us were really afraid of. I mean, we all. I know. I went there voluntarily, and I took the plane back voluntarily, and not a single person on the delegation said, I'll stay back in Pakistan. I want to to visit this, like a couple of cities. Anyone could have done that because we all had, visas. We could have said, I want to stay 2 or 3 extra days. No one, not a single person, none of the men nor women remained back. Every single person who came to Pakistan after the threat was made on the Washington Post and after the talks failed, everyone said we're coming back to Iran on the same.
And that's the powerful thing. That's the powerful part of this message is that people were willing to go do their duty, knowing that the Americans and the Israelis murder the people they deal with if they don't get their way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the message that should sink in.
We had young women journalists on the plane, right? They came back with us, and they knew what the threat was. They got on the plane and said, no, they never complained. They never, no, every single person who went to Pakistan came back on the team.
I thank the Lord everybody did, because the threat was there. I mean, they flat out told everybody, and the Israelis have done it numerous times. The Americans have done it also.
And if they had succeeded, do you think anyone would have complained in the West?
No.
Of course.
No.
Do you think they would have been sanctioned?
Well,
right now, do Russians participate in international sports?
Yes.
Right. So how has it been? How has it been for the last 4 years?
It's getting better. Honestly, I think we should have pulled out.
But for the Israelis, have they missed a match? Have they missed a match anywhere?
Yeah. Well, when the issue comes up, it's not quite the same as with the Russians. Oh, by the way, Iran
Eurovision, they're not even in Europe.
I know. Well, neither is Azerbaijan, for that matter, or Georgia. They're all part of Asia, but they still let them. But neither.
That's a part of that expansion of NATO project. Yeah.
So where exactly does Europe end? Where are the Chinese border in Eurovision? It is. I mean, it's directly this ridiculous. Or Armenia too is in Eurovision. I think Europe ends at the northern Caucasus. There, gentlemen, it's kind of gone over. So what's up with the Israelis? Sure, I mean, sure there'll be the Jordanians will be in Eurovision soon. Why not? As long as they stay loyal. Here you can be in Sodom and Gomorrah television, and I think the vast majority of Russians, if you ask them, they're like, "Thank God we're not in Eurovision anymore," because the perversion, it's just perversion television.
I've never seen it, to be very blunt, but I find it so extraordinary that trying to think of his name, Joseph Borrell. Yeah, Joseph Borrell called this, the garden, the garden, and the rest of us the jungle.
Absolutely.
And then we look at Gaza, and we look at Lebanon, and the war in Iran. And, that garden is pretty sinister.
Well, just look at the garden itself.
Yeah.
When they say it's our democracy, they literally mean our democracy. Me and my 20 buddies over here in the Epstein class, it's our democracy. Peasants, go away.
Is that one of the amazing things is that these people who are like anti-immigrants and who are now like, you see this growing number of people who are, they also push them to think that it's like the immigrants' fault. Instead of thinking, it's the guys who started all these wars, who pushed these people out of their own countries to come to your country. It's they who caused this situation, not those people who've been genocided in Gaza or in Yemen or in Lebanon or in the dirty war in Syria or the dirty war in Afghanistan or the war against Iran or the destruction of Iraq or Libya and so on. It's it's not them. They're not the problem. If you stop bombing if your government stop bombing their countries, I assure you won't have so many immigrants anymore.
I have a theory on that.
Then people like living close to their parents. They like living close to their cousins. They like living close to their childhood neighbors and friends. It's there's a natural tendency. I mean, I was brought up in Tehran. I like living in Tehran, despite all the problems that Tehran has as a megacity, because my friends are here, my family is here, my relatives are here. It's where I was brought up in. But if it's destroyed, well, then I have to go find somewhere else to live in.
Well, I have a theory on this. I'll just go over really quickly. So who helped create feminism? Who created feminism? Rockefeller admitted he helped create feminism. Why? Because before you had feminism, I'll use the U.S. as a prime example in this case, but it goes for almost any nation in the long run. You had traditional families, and you had most middle class one family incomes could buy a house, you get a car, could take a family vacation. You could support a middle class lifestyle on one income. Well, who's losing in this? Well, obviously the people that have to pay the workers because they're having to pay them decent wages. Two, the wages cover things that would otherwise would take credit. Therefore, banks are not making the money that they could be making. They can't credit people that have enough money to buy the things they need, right? So what do? You convince women that having children is horrible, being a mother is horrible. Go work in a factory or go work in an office with a bunch of people that hate you and you hate them, and it's all great. That's great. So you get what? You nearly double your workforce, which cuts wages instantly. Because you've got a lot more people competing for the same amount of jobs. You cut your wages, A. B, now everything, the wages are lower, prices are still going up, but the wages are lower. The wages, I mean, if you look at the American wages, if you adjust them for inflation, they haven't risen since the 1970s. 50 years of American wages haven't really risen. Prices have. So everything that people could afford to, you wanted to buy a new car in the U.S. in the 50s and 60s, you put your money away for 3, 4, 5 months, and then you go in and bought a new car. You can't do that anymore. You have to, a car costs what a house used to cost back then, or more. You have to put credit down, right? So you have to take credit, and the banks are now making money. But the problem is that only lasts one generation, because what happens is people aren't having children. Therefore, the next generation of workforce is again going to be very small. Prices are going to, income has to go up. So what do? You start importing labor. But there's the problem. Not a lot of people want to leave. But you have to motivate them to leave. Hey, if we also disrupt their countries, start wars, and they're going to have no choice but to go somewhere else if they want to survive. So now you're forcing the people to migrate. So you can keep that low cost workflow. That's even now lower cost than it was before. Because now you're getting illegal labor in, and you're pushing down the market prices. So you're making even more money. That top 1% is making more. The banks are making bank on all of this. Meanwhile, the rest of society has to pay for having a mass inflow of refugees or labor, the falling income, the incomes, the uptick in crime that grows no matter what when people get poor. And never mind, you have different nationalities, so you get forming ghettos, and all of that falls on society. So socialism basically for the 1%, and everybody else gets the shaft. And that goes over about 3-4 generations before you come to a collapse.
If you look at all these high-profile feminists in the United States and in Europe, how many of them are pro-Palestinian activists?
Oh no!
How many of them care about? You don't hear their names. I mean, actually, some of them are actually quite pro-Israel, and it's all those NGOs, all those NGOs that we have. They've all suddenly gone quiet. In Lebanon, the money that goes into the NGOs is extraordinary, but it's all to isolate the resistance. It's all to antagonize the resistance. So wherever you see like these high-profile figures in the West, whether they're feminists or whether they're human rights activists, or whether they're animal or whatever they are, they're basically out there to do the bidding of the empire. Not that they are always, they know that themselves, but that's how they get the money. You have to work within a particular framework. As I was explaining earlier about like Al Jazeera and other such media outlets, and the thousands of media outlets that these regimes have or fund across the world. At the end of the day, there's a certain box within which they work, and they can't really move outside of that box. Otherwise, they'll lose their funding. What's the young name? I'm sorry, I forget her name. The young girl who has become a pro-Palestinian activist, who was the darling of the
Greta.
Yes, yeah. When back then she was fantastic, and all the celebrities were with her, and she was on their yachts. But then when she started saying, look at what's going on in Palestine, then It's all done. It's finished.
Yep.
And to her credit, I think very highly of her because she gave up all of that stuff to do the right thing. I don't know what she's doing now. I don't know how she'll be in the future, but people like her deserve to be praised.